some interesting position battles. There are some interesting new pieces that have been added to this team that I think we'll all be looking for. Who do we see on the field? What transfers are starters? What guys are coming in from different schools and are going to make an immediate impact? And so for you, Gabe, when talking about positions, I know there's a lot of interesting ones that will be happening over the next couple of weeks as camp starts and into the season. So which ones are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking for the whole O-line first, and then I'll let you get to whatever you think after this. But the O-line is going to be very important. I think you're going to have a couple of mainstays that you don't have to worry about. Xavier Hill will start along the O-line somewhere. He's played some left tackle, some right guard, some left guard, and he's the transfer from LSU that is picked preseason first team All-AAC. He is going to get a bunch of playing time. He'll be a starter. Jonah Gamble, who's been a mainstay for 3 years along that offensive line, I think he started 30-plus games at this point. He'll be a starter along that O-line. He started at center during spring. He started at left guard his first 3 years. So I think those two are mainstays. The rest of the three, let's talk through it, right?
Yeah.
I think you have Trent Holler coming over from Marshall. He's played center, played some left guard, played some right guard. He can challenge for one of the interior O-line positions. But then that also leaves somebody out there by the name of Malachi Breland that I don't think a lot of people are talking about right now. Right. 6'3", 340 pounds. He was a redshirt freshman last year, and he started that AutoZone Liberty Bowl game. And a lot of the intel I get on him is that, he has a really good future ahead of him.
Yeah.
Now, this is a deep room. Will he be able to crack the starting five there? I don't know. But I have heard from a lot of people that I know that do recruiting services for a lot of Division I, Power 4 conferences. I've heard this is a guy that's already been on the list for a lot of them. It's like a transfer portal target if he ever decides to go that direction. So he is a guy that I want to see. Can he go in his redshirt sophomore year and win a position battle? I think at left tackle, we're going to have to go ahead and look really hard. You have Jalen Nichols, who is going to start at South Carolina before tearing his ACL. How is his ACL surgery and his past injury history going to affect him? Will he win that job? Or is a guy by the name of Chris Adams, Old Dominion transfer, will he be involved? This was a guy who we were very high on when he transferred from Old Dominion, because he was committed a week before he committed to Memphis to Washington, a team who was in the national championship a year ago. So I think that will be an interesting position battle to watch. I think right tackle, for the most part, you're looking at Keydrell Lewis, transfer from UL Monroe, really good player, started 30-plus games. I think he will be there. But I think there's going to be multiple position battles along that offensive line. But the positive you can take from that is that clearly there's enough bodies and depth for you to feel comfortable with where this offensive line is going. I've said there's two questions and or concerns about this team, O-line and secondary. I think the O-line categorically would be in that question category, and then that secondary, just because of past history, would be in concern. But those are the position battles I'm most curious about, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think you have to be, if you're a Memphis fan, you have to be very pleased with what's left on the offensive line, meaning the guys that are coming back, and then also what they brought in. Like, that's one of that, and the secondary are the positions they hit the hardest, and you can throw linebacker in there as well.
I mean, the truth of it is you lost in an offseason. Jacob Likes, 4-year starter. McKylan Pounders, 2-year starter and a left tackle. You lost Davion Carter, starting right guard, starter for 2 years. A lot of teams, especially in the group of 5, would flail around the next year trying to replace those guys. But it feels like they have just so many able bodies that you almost feel better potentially about what this O-line could be compared to even a year ago.
Yeah. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the secondary, because this is the unit that I think we need to see the most improvement from this year overall. And I truthfully think that they have the talent to do it. So I'm going to pull up a depth chart, and I'm going to give you what Our Lads has as the depth chart, and then we'll kind of talk through some of the names, especially the additions. So they've got Davion Ross at one corner spot, Tyron Taylor at the other corner spot, and Darius Coffey at the star, Greg Rubin at free safety, and then Cortland Marsh at strong safety. So that list only includes one transfer from this year,
Right.
and that's Cortland Marsh. And to me, I think there are a lot of guys on this list that are being left out. Cortland Marsh.
I can name 3 in particular that are just like notable omissions.
Yeah, Cortland Marsh is a transfer from Samford, but then you also have Taj Rael from Old Dominion, who
That's
a lot of people are expecting big things out of. You have AJ Watts, another guy that was pretty highly ranked in the transfer portal. Jaden Dennis transferring from Elon, another guy that was, I think he was the second highest rated DB transfer that they have. So those 3 guys specifically, it's weird to see them in the two deep. And I know this is our lads. It's not like some super advanced depth chart that what are we missing out on? And then another big one, Gabe, is Kobe Minor from Indiana.
Yes. I don't see how bringing him in, he's not at least a starter for a majority of the games. I just like that. His talent, his ability to cover in man. It's just like you need that type of skill set out there. A guy who can stick to wide receivers in man coverage. And I just think from a talent perspective, he's probably the most talented guy in the entire DB room.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think even if you took this secondary with those 4 transfers, if you took Kobe Minor, Taj Rael, AJ Watts, and Jaden Dennis, and that was your 4 guys, those were your 4 starters, I think that is an improved unit from last year. So with those guys on top of, your returning players, which we'll see what you get out of them. It wasn't an extremely impressive group last year, but I think Greg Rubin is a guy who could take a step forward potentially. I mean, we saw the really, really good true freshman season. And I think a lot of us have been waiting on that step forward from him. I know he had the position switch from corner to safety, and I think that's taken in some time to just develop in that spot, not a spot that he played in high school either. So he's a guy that can take a step forward. I think the range of outcomes for the secondary is huge. I think they could be a very good unit in the American, or I think they could fall flat again. I think it's more likely that they're successful because I think they brought in a group of really, really good players. I think those 4 guys specifically that I mentioned from the transfer portal, and you can include Cortland Marsh in there as well and a couple other guys, like they have all the tools to be a much improved unit this year. So I think honestly, both corner spots, both safety spots, and the star position, I think they're all position battles.
They have so many able bodies too. Yeah. Like it's like the O-line. I am so hesitant to crown a defensive backfield at Memphis because of the PTSD we have from over the years. That's my problem. Yeah. And then a couple of names you haven't brought up yet. DJ Bell, who got a lot of run last year, like a hell of a lot of run. I think he was listed as a starter opening week of the year.
He was. So
DJ Bell is a name, and then Julian Barnett. I know that people have forgot about him after. I mean, he transferred from Michigan State 3 years ago. At this point, people forgot about him. But when you look at the mix of size, athleticism, and potential, he's a guy who could really take a crazy step. And if you listen to Ryan, Jordan Hankins, a lot of the defensive staff coming out of spring, they finally saw the strides from Julian Barnett that they've been wanting to see since he came over and transitioned into being a defensive back. And I think that's a guy who could be a dark horse to be one of the best guys in that room this year.
Yeah, and then there are other guys on this list, and that's what's crazy about it. And I think that's why there's so much competition. You also have Marjavius Moss, who I think was Memphis's highest rated recruit in the 2023 class. So redshirt freshman that had a lot of expectations coming in. I'm just looking through the list here. Cameron Miller, who I believe started his career at Tennessee before.
No, I think he's gone now. He's gone.
Is he
now.
gone?
They haven't updated. I think he transferred out. Yeah, he transferred.
Okay, this is what is
went to Vandy, if I'm not mistaken.
This might be the spring roster that I'm looking at.
That's probably what it is.
But yeah, it's a different unit than we've seen as far as depth and talent. what does that mean? How does it translate? I don't think we can necessarily predict that out because, like you said, there is kind of that battered syndrome with picking them to be good or to be successful. But another thing I'll mention about this unit that I don't think we've seen much of at Memphis, I think there's a lot of good size in the secondary.
Yeah, a lot of 6-footers.
Yeah, a lot of 6-footers. Like you talked about DJ Bell. He's listed at 6'2". Taj Rael, 6'2". AJ Watts, 5'11", 190. Keep going through. Marjavius Moss, another 5'11".
Julian Barnett's 6'1".
Yeah, Julian Barnett, 6'1". Like this isn't the 5'8", 5'9" corners that we've seen at Memphis at times. It wasn't too long ago that they were literally fielding a secondary, especially the cornerbacks that were 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". Like Savante Oliver, I think was like 5'8", 5'9", and JUCO transfer. So they've had a lot of problems with size in their secondary. I don't see that being an issue this year. I think they're long. I think they're fast. I think they're athletic and deep. And we'll see how it translates. I think it is the most intriguing position group overall. And like I said, range of outcomes is huge. It could be extremely successful or it could fall flat. Once again, I don't see it happening, but I'm so scared to say it.
And here's one more thing that I want people to chew on when it comes to position battles. Brought up O-line. We talked about secondary. I think D-line, we'll see what the interior guys look like, but you feel good about what they're going to have on the edge because they've been here for a while, and Cormonte Hamilton and William Whitlow.
Yeah.
Those two guys in the middle. I think P.J. Lucas will get one of the starting nods with one of the D tackles. We'll see what the other one looks like, maybe Derek Hunter. But I want to talk about wide receiver and not the top 2 or top 3. Kobe Drake's going to get a lot of run. You're going to get Rock Taylor and Demir Blankenship. They're going to be really highly productive guys. But past that, when you get into some of these extra sets, where you have 4 wide receivers, maybe going to empty, who else will be on the field? I'm curious. You have Keondae Henry, who was a 4-star last year in that class in 2023. You have Jacoby Banks, who came over from Houston as a transfer. He's apparently a very fast guy who could definitely make some plays using his legs. And then there's one more transfer. Jair Shorter came over from Auburn, who caught for 300 yards last year at Auburn. I think that, again, depth is going to become a word that we use constantly, and we're going to sound like broken records. There's depth there, but I want to see who can separate themselves and become like a mainstay with that wide receiver room, because I think looking into the future, this year will tell us a lot about who's going to be next up in that wide receiver room, who's going to catch passes from Antoine Hill Jr. going into next season or the next few seasons. Is Jacoby Banks going to step up as a sophomore transferring over? Are we going to see some strides from Keondae Henry in his true freshman year? I want to see that not necessarily like a position battle, but to see who can get those extra reps outside of the big 3 in that wide receiver room. That's going to be very fun to watch for me.
Yeah, I think it will too, because I think in the receiver room, it's so easy to have your depth tested, and
hamstring here, calf here.
Right. It doesn't take much, and I don't know if they have that depth. I think it's a possibility, but you have so many unproven options past Demir and Rock and Kobe Drake. Like those 3 guys.
I want you to think about the past with like those type of guys and how this has worked. We've always gotten to look at the future in the wide receiver room with whoever is that next guy up. When I was playing, we had Phil Mayhew and Anthony Miller, and DeMonte Coxey was sort of waiting in the wings. So DeMonte comes along, right? And then you have DeMonte and Calvin Austin is sort of in the rear view he's trying to catch up. He's in that side view mirror trying to see what happens there. He steps up. Right. Then you have Rock Taylor sort of waiting in after him. You always sort of see the next iteration of that skill position group, that wide receiver position group, grow up before your eyes if you just pay attention to who that extra body is that they trust and they bring in to make big plays.
Yeah. And I think for the future of Memphis football, I think Keondae Henry at least being somewhat successful in his true freshman season. And that doesn't mean 700 yards and 6 touchdowns or anything like that, but just seeing that, okay, he's got something, like he can be successful. It would be good to see him chip in at times this year if someone does go down, like we previously mentioned, or if he's just good enough that they can't keep him off the field. Like, that is a huge plus for this team, because outside of him, Keondae Henry being a true freshman and Jacoby Banks being a sophomore, this wide receiver room could lose a lot going into the 2025 season, because Demir Blankumsey is a redshirt senior. He's done. Rock is a senior, so he potentially could have one more year, depending. It's so hard to keep up with.
Right. Probably not, though.
Probably not, though, since he was not redshirted. Jair Shorter, the Auburn transfer, is a redshirt senior. Kobe Drake is a redshirt senior. And it's just like, looking beyond this year, you want to see those young guys, those sophomores.
Who has promise?
Freshmen,
as simple as that.
Who can come in and who can make a play if their number's called on.